my phone. So let's get started with the admin meeting for Seward County. Roll call.
Tweed Schuman,
He called me this morning and said he would not be available.
Dale Schluter,
He told me he would be available.
James Fleming,
He said he might be here.
Ron Kinsley,
Here.
Tom Duffy.
Here.
Certification of compliance with open meeting laws.
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Meeting agenda. Any additions or changes? Questions? Okay, we'll move on. Public comments. Do we have anybody here? Anybody virtual public comments?
Liz Zilmer.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Zilmer.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I have two items that I'd like to address in just the 3 minutes I have for public comment. The first is request for a future agenda item to discuss board policy or practice as to how and when outside counsel or corporation counsel can be consulted. I'm a little bit concerned, you know, I appreciate that committee members, board supervisors would like to now maybe get legal opinion, but when is the appropriate time? And is it a matter of individual supervisors acting, or should it be a community or a committee decision? There was a committee meeting earlier this week where very preliminary information was presented and committee members did not have time to look at it. It will be discussed in the future, but should something like that be going in a very rough form to corporation counsel at the beginning or only after the committee has had a chance to discuss it? The second item I would like to address, and especially important, I think, in light of the committee meetings I observed this week and tomorrow's zoning hearing. I know while the law does not require masking, I am concerned that if just for courtesy, respect, and potential public health issues, that when members of the public are required to attend a meeting or a hearing, that the county board supervisors that are attending in person, please mask. I was really disturbed that with Monday's committee meeting where the chair of the committee and another supervisor did not mask. That assembly room is very small. You're not able to distance. And it wasn't an option for one member of the public to attend. They were requested to come on behalf of the Historical Society. And I think whether it's a member of the public or even county staff, to be put in that uncomfortable situation if their belief is that they are at risk is not appropriate. Now I understand for tomorrow's hearing that there is maybe expected a large attendance due to the nature of some of the cases. And if people are feeling that zoning committee members are going to come and not observe some of the public health recommendations, that might deter them from having their opportunity to publicly participate. So I know it's not on the agenda today, but I do have concerns, and I think that it needs to be addressed sooner or later, one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else on virtually from the public?
No.
Thank you. Approval of previous meeting minutes. We have a motion by Ron and a second by Tom. Any questions, comments? Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Gary, you're up.
All right, well, good morning. For March, the Veteran Service Office had 455 phone calls, 260 letters, emails, and faxes, and 125 office visits. To date, we've got about a little over $65,000 in claims decided in the veterans' favor for compensation and pension claims. So we're doing good. Our training is up to date. We were scheduled to go to get our annual training this summer in June. It's the second week of June. And so far so good. We'll see how that turns out. But other than that, we are fine as far as training and work.
Where is that training going to be?
It is down in the Wisconsin Dells.
Okay.
So
And you say you collected 65,000 in pension benefits and so forth.
yes, sir.
What percentage do you win?
I
Just
don't
off the
know,
top of
to
your
tell you the truth. It varies. I had a similar question, I think, 2 months ago on that. It all depends. It's not, it all depends on how much evidence you need. There's 3 things for
How
a
strong
successful
the case
claim.
is.
Yep, and if you don't have all 3 things, you're not gonna go very far. Matter of fact, you're not gonna go anywhere because it's required by law. So and then, so say somebody, let's take should we do hearing? How about hearing? Let's say somebody has hearing loss and they're claiming that it's service connected. There's 3 things I need. I need a veteran that's been discharged under honorable conditions. I need an event that happened in service, and then I need a diagnosis. So in this case, we're talking about hearing loss. So maybe the veteran was in country Vietnam, multiple firefights, mortars going off, rockets coming in, explosions, what have you. That's my event. So the next thing is, and the other part of that is when they went into the military, they had a hearing test. When they left the military, they had a hearing test. What does that show? Does it show that they had hearing loss? Okay, that's your service connection. The third part, is the diagnosis, and that's where that hearing test going in and coming out applies. So if you get all 3 of those, then the next question is, where does your hearing loss fall in regards to the Code of Federal Regulation for the VA to grade that hearing loss? And that grade goes from 0 to 100%. So that determines too, and then that determines the amount of money that comes in that will be coming in on a monthly basis for compensation. If it's 0, there's no money that's coming in to compensate that veteran for that loss. But then the next thing where this number comes from is, when did I file that claim form? Was it a year ago or was it 2 months ago? If it was, say the veteran comes through, I filed a claim for hearing loss 2 months ago, and it comes back as 10% service connected. Well, 10% is about $141 a month, $141.50. So the most that I'm going to get out of that successful claim to show here on this paper that I had a successful claim is $282. So it's arbitrary. It all depends. It all depends on when that claim was filed, when it was completed, and where it was, where it fell in the Code of Federal Regulation as far as service connection to the amount of money applied to that. Make sense?
Yes, it does, and I realize I probably worded that question poorly, because I certainly didn't mean to disrespect.
Oh, no, I didn't take it that way, sir.
Good.
It's just
But I thank you
hard
for
to
that
explain
explanation.
sometimes.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions for the service officer?
I have a comment.
Please.
Gary's aware, I've talked to Gary about his humble home over there, the Veteran Service Office building. We had some discussion last evening at Public Works about some of the deficiencies in that building. And part of the discussion is what kind of accommodations, if that building is deemed to be too expensive to get up to par, and we needed to move the Veteran Service Office to another location, there's certain things that you've talked to me about that you would be looking for in a location. You want to just briefly talk about that a little bit, and then I think as we get into it more, maybe we put that to paper and make sure that we get all of the things that you are looking for in a location, if in fact you move to a different location.
Okay, all right. Right, it would be nice to have a waiting room. And the other part of it is handicap accessible. I mean, up to par with law right now. because that isn't, I mean, it is to get in the door, but to get into certain offices, I can't do it. So we have to change things up, and it's, you know, it'd be nice if it was straight, you know, everything was leveled out accordingly for handicapped individuals. We have a back room back there that we did counseling in. It would be nice to have that, because someday I'm pretty sure we're going to get back to having counseling sessions, or it would be nice to have counseling sessions with the vet center counselor, and having that place for veterans to go. And it's not that big, but we had, before the virus, you know, we had 12 to 14 people in that back room for having group therapy, if you will. And then it was big enough, you know, obviously for individual therapy. The other thing that we started up because of COVID is I've got a flat screen in the waiting room right now. And I got that set up where our veterans can see doctors right in our office. And it's paid off already. But I would like that. I don't need it in my waiting room. It just happens to be that's where the TV was to show ads on VA stuff. And I just used that to set it up, and I just blocked it off for the veteran for whatever time they needed. But I would put that, if I had the opportunity, I would put that in the back where the counseling session is, and schedule around the counseling for veterans to be able to be seen by doctors. You know, like I said, it worked out pretty nice in the wintertime. I had a guy that needed a compensation and pension exam, and was able to do that exam right in our office. So versus driving to Duluth in the winter.
Mr. Chairman, of the things that Mr. Elliott has laid out, I think one of the ones that needs to really be emphasized is the accessibility for the veterans. When we sign up, we're in healthy, good condition. When we come out, we may be in conditions that are not as they were when we first signed up. But as the years come on, a lot of our conduct will have long-term effects. And I think developing accessibility for people, anticipating what those needs are, is paramount. I mean, we signed up as kids to do these things, and as we become old men, some of those consequences of those decisions come to bear, and it's hard for me to rationalize that we can't provide access to people who, as they become in their advanced years, if they're in wheelchairs or if they can't walk or whatever, that we can't get them access to different offices or different parts of that. And that I think that we really need to look at that and take that in consideration.
Thank you. But we have to, through the Affordable Care Act, we have to make these.
Yes, sir.
this
By law,
accessible.
that needs to be done. This
This has to
building,
be
you know, like I said, that the one office that I've spent most of my time with, you know, since I've been employed here, is incapable of doing that.
And we have to change.
Yeah, so, and that's why I say, whatever it is, you know, if it's an old building, you know, I'd like to look at that, depending, because I'm not assuming that we're gonna have a new building, you know what I mean? So my concern with that, but Mr. Slender brings up a good point too, as far as accessibility. During COVID, I've had people drive up, you know, that I knew maybe very advanced in Parkinson's, couldn't get out, but, you know, they pull up, their spouse would drive them up, or a friend would drive them up, and I would walk out and have them sign their paperwork to do their climb over their climb with them right out in their vehicle. And so that was nice as well. I'm just telling you, you know, so there's challenges that we've just worked around, but we've been able to do it because of that building being where it's at, as well. So, and then if we can have two offices, one for Michelle and one for myself, because when we're going through and interviewing these veterans, it gets into really personal stuff and bad stuff, and some things that are, you know, either, you know, the veteran's ashamed of or afraid of, or, you know, it's everything in life from the time you were born to the time you die, and all those events that happen are conversations that come up in our office, and there needs to be some privacy. And where they feel, comfortable in talking, so. That's basically it. So, heat would be nice too, so.
Well, I was gonna say, you also need a place where your staff is comfortable.
Yep.
They're dealing with a lot of pressure, a lot of phone calls, a lot of visits, a lot of emails. They have to be in a comfortable working area to accomplish all that.
Thank you, thanks for asking.
You can put heat on the wish list.
Yes, that would be nice.
But we'll get some for you for the summer.
I broke 71, but the sun was shining through the window on the thermometer. So, anyway.
Maybe county board members can take turns sitting in there and talking. There would be a lot of hot air.
There you go. We'll keep you warm.
Okay, any other questions for Gary? Thank you very much.
Thank you for all you do, Gary.
Yep, thank you.
You don't have a cost, if it was a cost to correct these things, do you?
No, but I do have some money set aside to do it. Whereas I have grant money that we should not have, that was from former years. And usually when you apply for the grant, you spend this grant money and then apply for it.
I know, I was
Pardon
just
me?
thinking of
Careful how
that.
you say that.
Break this.
So, yes,
Last evening, we had a list of Public Works, we had a list, maybe that list could be shared with the rest of the county board. Suggestion.
yeah, it's for the veterans. It's a veteran grant is what it's for. But if it improves that building, improves their access, that's a legal expenditure. So, and I've been sitting on it, waiting on what you guys were gonna decide, and then this shows up. So I will continue to sit on it until we figure out what it is you want to do, and then we'll just go forward. So,
Thank you.
pretty easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, information technology department.
You have my report. I'll field any questions if there are any.
No questions, Gertrude?
Mike, is there anything that you have trouble getting done as in administratively or anything else? Or you seem to be comfortable with how things are?
I can't think of anything. I think I'm very well supported by administration and this committee. There's always budget constraints, which is true for everybody, but other than that, no convince.
Thank you.
Did you want to talk about the management lease?
So this is actually just an operational expense that's budgeted. So Mr. Hoff informed me it should not require board attention. We're just kind of redoing the lease to lower some monthly costs and to make it easier to make payments. So I had asked Loeffler if they could basically redo the lease with those terms.
So you need no action here.
I
Correct.
don't think so.
Informational.
Anything else for Mike? We'll move on.
Thank you for what you do.
Human Resources Report.
Good morning. You guys have my report. The only thing I would have to add here is we did get a resignation from a paramedic this week. We have that posted and already have interested candidates. And we are setting up interviews for a child protective services worker and the social services aide next week. We did hire a CCS service facilitator. We changed that job description a little bit. This person's going to be doing the service facilitation and also working in another program just because of caseload. But he's very excited to join us and we're excited to have him. And Time Clocks is just chugging along. EMS is working. They're using the program. We've imported a payroll out of it. It's still in the test stage. And we're gonna set probably 4 or 5 smaller departments start to use it this next payroll and still keep a paper time card so we can be sure that it's tracking appropriately. And then we'll be off and running. I know I say that a lot, but we really are. We're close.
Any questions? I have one, who resigned, EMT or?
A paramedic.
Was there like an exit interview?
He hasn't left yet. He just gave his notice, but the reason he is leaving is he's starting his own business. So it has nothing to, and he wants to remain part-time with our service. So,
Good to go.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Human Resources, County Administrators Report.
Yes, good morning. The main things that we've been dealing with are trying to figure out the American Rescue Plan Act and what's involved in that, how we can allocate the dollars that will be coming our way. We're still waiting on U.S. Treasury guidance on exactly what is an allowable expenditure or what we are allowed to recover as far as lost revenue. So during this plan, there is a recovery for lost revenue. In the previous CARES Act, there was not. So if there's anything that we are missing on the revenue side due to COVID, we may be able to recapture that. But again, still waiting on guidance. Once we get that, we'll need to figure out a process by which we are going to use those funds. Again, the county is going to get $3.2 million. The towns within Sawyer County and the city within Sawyer County also receive funds. The state also gets a large allocation, which part of which may come our way as well. So coordinating all of these different funds and what we would be able to use them on and how we are going to use that, we'll need to work out, a priority or an allocation methodology of expending those funds. So we'll receive about 1.6 million in early May, and the other 1.6 million a year after that. So in May of 22. All of these funds need to be expended by December 31st of 24. So there is a generous time period in which we can utilize these funds for the purposes yet to be totally identified. So, while it's exciting to get these funds, we have to be careful about the urgency and plan carefully, especially in coordinating our efforts, with these other funds coming through. For instance, if there is another package that has infrastructure that helps on the roads, or if the state gives us an allocation that they deem should be used on local roads, then we could use our funds for something else. So it kind of depends on how all these things are coordinated and how we would use our funds. So again, time will tell on what we can use it for and how we decide on how we're going to allocate that. So I think, this will be on the administration agenda, in future months as we kind of work through some of these things. And then, this committee or the board can decide how that process is going to work. So we'll be talking about that from now, but between now and 24. There's some other things happening at the state level, besides the governor's budget and how that's going to roll out. There's some other things happening as we speak here. There's a Senate bill rolling through that would allow approximately a 10% refund of net property taxes. And that onus on how that happens gets put on the county treasurer. So if that legislation goes through and the funds are received by the county would have 20 days after receiving them to distribute those funds to all taxpayers. Again, it's not law yet, but if it does become law in that fashion, it becomes extremely difficult to administratively get those funds back out within 20 days. The tax system is different than the accounts payable system, so all of those taxpayers would have to be put in the financial system as vendors and cut checks, and very administratively burdensome to get that out. There has been talk in the County Treasurers Association about a different methodology. Perhaps the Department of Revenue is a better vehicle of getting those payments out more timely, but the way it stands now, it is a county treasurer responsibility. And I don't know if Diane is on the line, if you have any further comments on that at this time.
No, just that we're hoping that the governor will veto it as it stands and we'll have better opportunities for more input on how it should be handled.
So these things are kind of up in the air, but it's certainly a concern that we're looking at. There's also other legislation being contemplated at the state level regarding a sales tax holiday, which would give bars and restaurants, they wouldn't have to charge sales tax over the summer. So during our busiest season, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we would not receive any sales tax related to bar and restaurant activity. There is no provision in that legislation to reimburse the counties for lost revenue. They do give us a little, no, there is no reimbursement to counties. So if that happens, we would take a hit to some sales tax, so we'll see where that goes. So, you know, we get some funds rolling in the door, and then they take something away somewhere else, so we'll see how it all shakes out. But a couple of pieces of legislation that we're keeping our eye on. On the courthouse project, you know, we've talked about where we're at on that. We've got a request for proposal on the street right now for the construction manager at risk. That proposal is due back to us on April 22nd. The county board chair, as had been discussed conceptually at the last county board meeting, will be proposing, you know, an ad hoc committee, stating the purpose of that ad hoc committee and the members of that ad hoc committee, which tentatively would be the county board chair, the public works chair, public safety chair, and the finance chair, and the county administrator. And that team would be then responsible for reviewing the proposals that we received back to the construction manager and evaluating and scoring those and selecting a construction manager. So those interviews with the construction managers after those proposals would be received is May 6th and 7th. And then we would select a construction manager after that. And then the real fun starts with coordinating the effort between the architect, the construction manager, finalizing plans, and getting ready to start construction in the spring of 22. In the meantime, there has been some soil borings done between this building and the jail. There's a survey that needs to be done. They're trying to contract with a surveyor to get that work done. And there's been some court tours with the judge, the sheriff, clerk of court, and staff, and the district court administrator, looking at other courts and how they're laid out to determine the best layout for our facilities as they, you know, finalize the plans and the workflow, especially between, you know, transporting prisoners between the jail and the holding cells and the courts, the two different courtrooms, and making sure that that gets designed to be the most efficient and safe layout for those activities. So lots of things going on, and that activity will pick up as we keep moving forward here, but things are rolling on that. Questions on that?
Anybody virtual have any questions? Okay, I have a couple of questions. That 20-day thing, is that something we should be addressing around this CAP team?
Yeah, I don't recall where that one's at, if both the Senate and the Assembly have passed that already, passed it on to the governor, but we can certainly bring that up because that's tomorrow, our discussion with the legislators. We can discuss that as well, yeah.
And along that same line, with the 2024 deadline to spend all this money, the longer they wait to tell us what's allowable, what isn't, the less time we have. Is that a concern, or
Well, I think we'll see that guidance, certainly within the next month. So that by the next time we meet, we should have further guidance and have it dissected with Wisconsin counties and kind of have a better idea. We talk about roads, that's a major concern amongst the counties, especially those that get a larger allocation than we do. What are they going to spend that money on? Roads has come up, but infrastructure is not specifically stated in the 4 points that they had outlined in the American Rescue Plan Act. When they talk about infrastructure, they're talking about water, sewer, and broadband. Those are the only areas of infrastructure mentioned. Is there another infrastructure package coming out? Is there a way to utilize these funds? Because in one of the points it talks about that we can spend the money with respect to COVID on things such as aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. So, roads go to those things. Does that mean we could spend money on roads because it helps tourism? Those are the types of questions that come up from counties. It's like, is this going to be a legitimate expense or not? Because we don't want to be spending money and then somebody coming back later and saying, wow, we didn't mean that. That's not an allowable expense. You need to repay that or whatever. So that's why the guidance that we receive is important to clarify those categories of the things that we can spend money on.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on, future agenda items.
There's always going to be the building project, always going to be in the agenda.
The other thing, with right now and future agendas, is the financial condition. We, had discussions in Health and Human Services and in Finance Committee about, the costs that we're incurring in out-of-county placements. That's going to be one of our hot topics as we talk to legislators tomorrow in our sessions with them. But it's certainly a concern in how we move forward financially with those costs. We've also had some discussions in Health and Human Services regarding the OASIS facility that the county operates and the future of that facility and how that may impact not only cost, but the building that the county owns down there. If that space could be used for an alternative purpose if OASIS is no longer in existence. So that preliminary talks on that, but something that we're keeping track of and having discussions about.
One thing you might want to consider, just a possibility, is Sawyer County Housing Authority is always looking for buildings to turn into affordable housing. They can buy it outright, perhaps. Where are we next? Correspondence reports, conferences, meetings, and other matters for discussion. Mr. Schwinn.
Mr. Chairman, two things. One is on the Monday meeting, economic development. We had an exciting opportunity. We had a member of the Sawyer County Historical Society come visit, and we're looking at exploring options of strengthening that relationship. And we're going to have Mr. Bisonet, a member of the committee. He's also the Tribal Historical Preservation Officer, working with Kinnaman School, which is kind of the historical society type of equivalent for the tribe, to see about garnering some volunteers, working on digitizing some of the documents, a lot of image identification, and then seeing if there's a way that some of the information or the exhibits can be made available so that people can come visit them in a safe and secure environment. So it's Ms. Hessel, a member of the committee as well, is excited about the project, and I'm waiting for some response coming back from the tribe as they undertake that. So that's going to be brought up at the full board meeting. The second matter that I'd like to just bring to attention, and I don't know how to bring this to attention except for bringing it up here, is in Sawyer County, and I say this because it's going to sound critical, but it's not critical, because I understand that there's conditions that make these have to happen. But literally in every single road or highway or other type of passageway that exists in Sawyer County, there has been some kind of cut on the forest. We've got some of the power companies that are doing their right-of-way clearings for their power lines. And I mean, they're doing that because if we have a choice between trees and electricity, we're going to probably side with electricity. But every single road, and I would just ask everybody, just get in your car, drive tonight, drive on any road, whether it's Highway B, Highway F, Highway S, 27, 70, 63, double N, N, CC, E, K, KK, B, A, I mean, all of these roads, every single one of these roads has some kind of cut. And some of them, probably most of them, are going to be private property. And because of the fact that we had this COVID situation going on for a year, families are feeling financial hardships. And so it's easy to cut the trees because the trees will come back. But I mean, we're seeing a major restructuring of the surface of Sawyer County. And I don't know what we can do. I mean, we're not going to stop it, right? I'm not going to hold it against the, whether it's the county or the citizens or the state or the tribe, whoever's doing these cuts. But we should just acknowledge that the animals that went on migration are coming back to something that's structurally completely different than when they left. And it's the same for us as people that live here. There's a cycle that exists with how we have things, and we pride ourselves on being a tourism county, but we're literally cutting down all of the trees, literally. So I would just ask everyone to go do that. Go out and take a look, and I don't know what we can do about it. So those are my two comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody else? I have a question. Sawyer County Record article talks about the assistant coroner's concern about health issues with our EMTs and paramedics going into homes that are unsafe, unhealthy. And it talks about, he was at public safety last week. And then it says, Florine told the Sawyer County Public Safety Committee on April 8th. Where to go. And they also had presented their concerns to a joint meeting of Health and Human Services and Aging Disability Resource Center in ADRC. When did that joint session take place? Joint meeting?
It wasn't Health and Human Services, that committee. It's I forget the name of the committee, but it's a staff group, like the sheriff, Health and Human Services, certain groups that deal with those individuals and how they coordinate efforts between the sheriff's department and
So that was board members.
I don't know that board members were there. It was a staff meeting.
So if I could just provide a little bit of additional. So Mr. Honorheim was reporting to the committee in his capacity as the deputy coroner. If he's having discussions with the Sawyer County Record, I think the coroner needs to have a discussion with that, because I don't know if he can represent the county in that kind of capacity. Public safety has taken it under consideration, the request, and it's a housing, or it's not a housing ordinance, it's a safety ordinance or safety ordinance request. And there was a request to try to address some of the conditions that EMT and fire would deal with in terms of how people conduct themselves in their houses. And there was a concern about overreach in terms of what the county was going to do and how people are going to maintain their property. And there's also a concern for the safety of the medical people, the first responders, the sheriffs, and whatnot. And so The matter's been referred to our corporate counsel for review of the statutes to see what codes are in place that could be addressed. And so it's, I would say that the representation in the Sawyer County record is not reflective of the conversation that was coming from public safety. And so I would just caution as to what you read. So that's
Well,
all that I have for that.
I didn't say anything to anybody else. I came here to get clarification.
Right.
I probably agree with you. Mr. Owner, I may not be a legitimate spokesperson for Sawyer County.
Well, I'm not going to argue legitimacy. I just don't think it's his capacity as a deputy coroner to speak on that or to speak about what happened in the public safety, because those minutes are actually still not published, and we're still, that was an ongoing matter. And I know public was present, and the public is free to speak whatever we want on terms of the topic, but representing what the position of the committee is or the county is inappropriate, because we have our own processes going forward in terms of what our position is. And so those matters are under review because of the ordinance, because of the legalities of what was being asked. And there was a concern that arose from the committee in terms of overreach on the part of the county's part, and whether or not public safety actually had the jurisdiction to deal with what would be a health and human services matter in terms of ordinance enforcement, because the sheriff's not going to go in and tell people to clean up their yards. They'll issue a citation based on ordinance, but it's going to come from like the public health nurse or something. And that party doesn't report to our board or our committee.
Anything more?
Nothing for me.
He's adjourned.
But,